Call to order. Join us in the pledge. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we get into the agenda, just a number of house cleaning things that I want to end up taking care of. Is, first of all, I'd like to take and end up starting out and commending our vice chairman, who, if we all remember, at the beginning of the year when we had reorganization, said he didn't want to take and end up chairing the meeting. He was happy with vice chair. And come along February, I had to take and end up going in for surgery, which was supposed to be surgery, stay overnight, and come out, which will probably meant, and like I told him, well, it's only 1 or 2 meetings, Jeff, you should be able to handle that. Well, as it ended up, it didn't end up to be that. And I didn't start coming back on a regular basis until April, and I thought it was very prudent and for continuity that Jeff take the meetings up to and including the annual town meeting, because he had gone to the budget meetings. And on that particular note, I'd like to take and end up saying that I think Jeff did a pretty good job for being thrown into a situation he did not want to begin with. Thank you very much, Jeff.
You did a wonderful job.
I think he did a pretty good job.
All right, meeting adjourned. Crossroads beer now.
Some other housekeeping things is, and I think everybody saw the email that I forwarded from the town clerk. There was a total of 5 people right after the town meeting, and the moderator only chose at that time to appoint 3 members. There's still 1 vacancy. I checked on that Monday, and I guess the moderator had not got a hold of that individual or one of the individuals to see if they were still interested. I asked that same question today of the town clerk. She wasn't in, but I did get an answer. And they said that they were gonna they made an attempt Monday, and I guess they're making another attempt today. So with that, that will, once they end up filling that, we'll have we'll back to 7 members. Along with that, the people that were reappointed for, and I'll start out with Julie Farrell, 3-year appointment till 2020.
Oh, good, thanks.
Jeff Bennett, 3-year appointment to 2020. Makes it official when you get the card, you know. Not like the last time you got cards. And the last one would be Paul Grubb till May of 2019. Thank you. One of the things that, and I don't have this as agenda item, but as housekeeping and possible for further investigation by us, there was a lot of discussion around how many people to end up appointing this year. There was 4 openings, one because 2 people had taken 1-year appointments rather than filling out another person's appointment. One person was elected to the board and their term ended at annual town meeting. And of course, 1 member whose 3-year term was up, they were also up. That meant 4 people. It's not good to have 4 people on a 3-year cycle. It should be 2, 2, and 3. We may end up, as a board, look at that sometime next year and maybe make a suggestion that they can end up changing that portion of the bylaws. Okay? That's it for that. Approval of minutes from the last meeting. Oh, let me start off by saying this. Since one of the individuals that was not reappointed was our scribe, I'm looking for a volunteer to take minutes. And if If I don't have a volunteer, I will probably end up having our vice chairman, since he has taken minutes previously.
I'll just do it tonight.
You gonna do it? Okay. So with that, Jeff will end up taking the minutes. Minutes from the last meeting, do we have any, Jeff? I didn't see any.
Oh, I'll have to email Kate, see if she can send them for the pre-town.
Okay,
And I always set them minutes for either the previous or
yeah,
the meeting before that. But I'll email Kate and see if she'll send the pre-town, cause she,
okay.
if not, I got
A sheet? Yeah.
I got the sheet, typed out in Windows already with all our
Yeah.
recommendations and the votes and all of that, so
Yeah.
that would,
One thing I noticed is that we're gonna have to take and end up catching up on some of our meetings to put it up on the town website. No minutes at this particular time. Next agenda item is that we have a bill for the pre-town meeting from the Gardner News for $63.80. And let me just, it stunned me, I think the selectmen are gonna end up seeing this also when they start putting stuff in. They attached a letter basically with the bill and says, "Dear advertiser, we have heard you and your advertising agencies. We are planning a smaller change in our actual page size of our newspaper. The modified size and corresponding rates reflect the same proportional dimensions of the page. We're simply following a trend that most newspapers naturally have already adopted. I have attached the new specifications and corresponding rates. Let us know if you have any questions. We deeply appreciate your business and your support. Andrea Bell, publisher." And it gives the size. If they're gonna take and reduce the size of the paper, I imagine that the print is gonna be doing the same thing, and they're probably, it looks like it will probably be charged about the same rate as what we're presently paying.
what they do is, papers are printed on rolls of paper.
Yeah,
And, like if you pick, like, I'll show my age here, old adding machines where you had a roll of paper.
yep,
It's a certain width. Like
Yep.
the Worcester Telegram stuff, they used to have rolls of paper 55 inches, and they went down to 50. And that's a chunk of tonnage and a
yes, it is.
big reduction in cost.
Cost,
And I'm not sure the web width of the Gardner News, but it's the same principle.
right,
Shrink the size of the roll, shrink the cost of the print, but the paper still costs 75 cents.
yeah,
And,
right,
and all the other costs will stay the same. It's just, reducing its biggest cost of newspapers are labor and paper. So the easiest way to cut paper cost is to reduce, the web width. So hence you get a smaller paper. And they say, well, it's easier to read and easier to handle, but I'm getting less from the same price, so. It's actually an increase in the price of
It's
the
the
newspaper, it's
same-
just smaller.
Same
But
material,
that's just
same
technical.
content, just
Yeah,
condensed.
yeah.
I'll entertain a motion, on this bill.
I'll make a motion to pay $63.80 to pay the bill.
$63.80, okay.
Isn't
Do
that
I have a
what it was?
second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Bev?
Yes.
Julie?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes. It requires a signature. I will sign it. Does the board just want me to sign it? Would everybody else like to sign this
No.
also?
You can sign it.
Okay. God, you gotta get a pin that works. Thank you. As soon as we make copies, I'll end up putting this into the accountant. budget to actual. What I like to do is start with the expenditures and go page by page if somebody has questions on the page before we get into the revenues. Is there anything on page one anybody wants to talk about? I take that as a no. I have one. If you look at the bottom of page one, treasurer collector, and the percentage that they paid out, that's the same as all the other department heads. My understanding is that the treasurer collector is no longer coming into work, and I'm not sure about the status. I asked that question of some department heads today, and they clearly could not say what the status of that individual was. Yes?
Mr. Chairman, the status of the treasurer collector, regardless of the paperwork, so she was removed, but there's a document that is sent out to her to sign her resignation, which she has, I think, 28 days from her removal to sign that document. Once she signs that document, it would put into effect that she will be resigning, and then she has another 8 days to fully, to recant that, to repeal. Once that's done, then she has a posted resignation date, and she will receive pay until that resignation date. And that's to say if she does sign all those. If she doesn't sign those documents, then it comes into appeal, and then there's a whole legal battle that goes on.
It would have been better if the selectmen had said that they were working an issue within the treasurer collector's office with an individual, rather than, for transparency's sake.
This is just knowledge that I know based
Well,
on
right,
how the
and
town employees are.
I know you're new on board, but that's what I'm saying is, for transparency, for even the employees here, it was, I asked, and they said, yes, no, they're still working the issue.
It's still confidential, that's, I don't even know myself until.
Right, but they should have said, we're working with the individual on an issue, and they're no longer in the, coming to the office.
It's my understanding that they will receive salary until they're full.
Yeah, they should have said, she's on administrative leave, we're working some issues. And didn't have to get into the specifics, so people at least understood that there is issues there. Page 2.
I had a question on
Yep.
town council expenses.
On town
No.
council?
Yeah, I know that it was mentioned that there would probably be a shortfall in that account, and it looks like there will be since it's expended at 93% at this point.
I'm gonna ask you to speak up a little louder.
Okay,
You talk too soft
all right.
for me.
It looks like there will be a shortfall
Yeah.
in this account, because it's already expended at 93% as of
Right.
last week.
It appears, and I can't remember what this year's budget, and maybe some of you that went to most of the budget hearings, were the one above it, about the Hoppers being at 65%. I think last year we took $2,000 out of that fund. And if it's consistent, $2,000 over, all the documentation that I see on that is that if that's the case, then we should be lowering the amount for any expenditures such as that. I don't know if they did in this budget or not, I
Yeah.
can't recall.
The other question I had was under town technology expense.
Yep.
It's not more of a question. It looks like there's a pretty good chunk of change in town telephone and town technology expense.
Yeah, there's still less than 60% and less than, a little over 70%, yeah. Any other questions on that?
Only comment is on the town council.
Yep.
Expected shortfall was in there. There was an email from town administrator, and I think it might have been in, his second quarter, or his, town administrator report.
Yes. it
One
was.
piece of documentation from him, he'd listed, several
And that was one of them.
items that,
Yeah, that was
there'd
one.
probably be end-of-the-year transfers to cover that.
Everybody saw the question that I went out to him and the select board about reserve and end-of-year transfers. In anticipation of that, we'll probably seeing a number of them once the selectmen have actually voted on them. Later on the new business, I wanna take and address July meetings, but that'll be on the new business. Any other questions?
I just wanted to get some clarification. So the transfers will be the selectmen request a transfer, and then we approve?
Well, the administrator will
Yeah.
probably, or accountant will ask for that as department heads,
Okay, so,
or the department heads themselves.
right, so are we going to meet jointly with the selectmen to approve?
No, that's generally done separately.
It's done separately, okay.
They end up in their meetings, go through, and they sign the documentation for end-of-year transfers,
Okay,
and there's a agenda item later on of our documents that we can end up talking about that a little more in depth.
okay.
Anybody have any questions on page 3?
Oh, yeah. I just had a comment. Looks like town vehicle fuel has a lot of money left, 41 grand. I'm not sure what it will have after the town meeting, because I believe the town meeting, there was an article to transfer money out of fuel. I think it was the first article.
Which one is this again, Julie?
Town vehicle fuel?
Oh, okay. That's on a later page,
No, it's on
That's
page 3.
Top of page 3.
on the top? Oh, okay,
fourth
You-
line up, yeah.
the fuel you're talking about,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't catch the fuel, I'm sorry.
The other point I'd like to make is that police department salaries, well, it's at 75, shouldn't it be at 84?
I would think it should be.
Because that's what all the other percentages are showing for departments.
Their expenses also went up for this year, and if you notice, they're only 50%.
Yep. That's what, yeah.
Unless they have everything that comes at the end of the year, that seems a little out of line.
And,
Anything on the firefighters?
yeah, firefighter EMS salaries,
That seems a low,
yeah, at like 55%.
especially when we wanna take and end up transferring $325,000.
Right.
That's, okay.
And the expense budget for the fire department EMS. There's close to $6,000 in that left.
I think the animal inspector, they pay that right at the end of the year. So that's why none of it's used. Unless they don't have one, but I do still believe that they do have one.
I saw van on Baldwinville Road, the Templeton Animal Inspector, so somebody's doing that job, would seem.
Anything else on page 3? Page 4?
Looks like dispatcher wages is dangerously low. Like, I don't know if they're gonna meet payroll this week. Dispatcher wages.
Yes, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay?
I'm gonna sit you two next to each
97%.
other.
I was
Come on.
going to sit there, but then I wasn't sure who was coming, so I sat here. All right. It's at 97% paid out.
Yes, I
There's,
see that.
$6,933.19 left, and I'm not sure that's enough to cover payroll for this week.
That could be a big issue.
Don't,
Wonder when they're gonna figure it out.
Because one of the things is if, and I'm not sure on how this is gonna work because of the change in the act about end of year transfers. But to take, I don't know if they can, I don't believe they can we can end up taking that, even if it's an end of year transfer for salaries out of the emergency reserve. They have to come from somewhere else.
Yeah, they released, all the limits and restrictions are all gone with the Muni Modernization Act. They can even transfer out of the health insurance fund now, where they couldn't before.
But even under the emergency
As
reserve,
far as I know, the reserve didn't change, but as far as finding the money.
Yep.
See, they can go more places and take more, cause the 3% or $5,000 thing, it's all gone.
Yeah.
So they can,
but there's a thing in place for the emergency reserve where you basically, DLS has stated you can't
Yeah.
use it
I
for
don't-
salaries.
I don't believe that changed. I think that's
So that's
still
a-
the way it was.
Still,
I
they
hope
opened a
not that
big-
they can end up seeing that as an issue.
But it's now easier to get the money that you need to move from
Right.
place to place. Cause like I said, they can even take it if there's left over in the health insurance. Before, that was against the law.
Yep.
So,
Opened a bag of worms there.
Well, you can see the last two items on page 4. And I have a question. Solid waste disposal expenses, that's a contract, and that's overspent by $842. How is that allowed, even by the accountant? That should have been, that should have come before the selectmen or whatever. Or maybe
I think
hold
they
on
have
to
her
that
do-
bill.
They
for
have her
the end of
doing
year
too many
transfers.
things. Really.
Snow and ice, I understand, we can deficit spend there. Any other questions on page 4? Page 5.
I just had a question about the way they're accounting the cemetery superintendent salary since they combined the DPW position.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Give them some free cash, maybe.
If it ever gets
Somewhere.
approved, I don't know.
yeah, that does seem strange that the highway is higher than you would expect, and the cemetery department is lower than you would expect. I would have expected the cemetery department to be lower if they ended up going to the higher salary, to the highway,
Right.
taking that out of the highway. That wasn't a clear, to me, that wasn't a clear transition to end up going from two departments a DPW without the citizens getting involved.
No,
There seems to be a number of accounts that are under, underspent on page 5.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure, but the rec department won't really start up until the next fiscal year. I mean, they'll start taking applications probably the
June,
beginning of June,
Yep.
but the rec program doesn't start usually until like right after the 4th of July and
School, yeah.
runs through.
There's a lot of money
Right,
left.
so that's the next fiscal year, so I don't
There's
understand.
a lot of money left over there.
Yeah,
I mean, there was enough of money appropriated for both those, for expenses and salaries last year.
right.
The library expenses generally, isn't that, I mean, you got a little bit more handle on this, Julie, being into that field. Isn't that, that's mandated as
Right,
to
by the
how much they
formula.
have to have.
Right.
They don't seem to be spending only 35%. Do they generally a library, do they wait till the end of the year to make their purchases, or?
It depends, she might have something, I know she's doing that retrospective conversion project with CW Mars, so I
Oh,
don't know if
yes,
she's
oh, yeah, the
holding.
Mars project.
I don't know if that, I don't know, I can only speculate at this point, if that's what's
That-
happening with that
could-
account.
As an expense, that could end up eating up that. What's surprising here is that the library maintenance person, they blanked that out, even though they have a number for it, they put it under wages last year, and I don't know if, I can't remember in the budget if they made that separate.
I don't remember.
Okay, any other questions on page 5? Page 6? I'll
Well-
state one that's obvious is the, I think is it the,
Interest on long-term debt?
group insurance was stated to be close.
Right.
We may end up seeing end-of-year transfer on that.
Yeah. There seems to be a lot of money left in interest on long-term debt. There's 156,000 in
Yeah.
that. I'm just not sure what the timing is
Yep.
of the payment of the interest.
I'm glad to see that the selectmen, along with the finance team, took our suggestion a couple of years back on the Whistler Regional Retirement Assessment and pay that whole thing off and saving, actually, at least 5 figures in retirement costs. Nothing on page 6, page 7?
Oh, just ambulance receipts reserved. That's at 97%.
Yep. That along, the ambulance reserve receipt along with the other is nowhere near the 325, if my math is correct. I didn't add those up, but. And I think we pretty well stated our position on that is taking money from there, since it was earmarked just for, the ambulance, running the ambulance, and to move extra money into the general budget. If they move too much, there is no vehicle that they can move the money back into that fund,
Right.
and it goes into free cash.
Well, I talked to Dave a little bit the other day, because I went to get a permit, and I don't think he understands, because he said that he can't afford to lose a dime of the money in his account, and I tried to explain to him, if they take too much, that it goes into free cash. And I don't know, I don't think he understands that. I think he thinks that it's gonna stay in his account, which it should stay in his account. By rights, that's how it was set up, so, I don't know. I don't know, but
Anything else on page 7?
it'll be a problem.
Not page 8, that's mainly donations, et cetera. There's still money in the skateboard,
Yeah, I noticed
on-
that too,
and they're
yeah.
going to end up killing that. I hope they have plans to move that somewhere. Unfortunately, the kids in Temple Center are gonna have to, wherever they go, they're gonna have to take it back up and have their parents take them over there.
Nothing.
Nothing on page 8, page 9? I look at some of these, especially when I see Hospital Cottage. Hospital Cottage hasn't been around for quite a while. I think that needs to be addressed at some particular point.
They have the cemetery that Alan and Stephanie unearthed. They could use some of that money to fix it up and buy some flowers.
Some of those things are like some of the, what do I wanna say?
Perpetual funds.
No, this was, a lot of the selectmen are trustees on a lot of them, and they're specifically set for certain things. And the only way they can be changed is they
Right.
have to track down, any relatives or,
Right.
and if they're not there, it's very expensive legal-wise. 'Cause it was looked into, like the Otis Rice Fund, and a lot of these funds that, the money can only be used for this, or the money can only be used for that, and today, that would be like illegal. And some of the things that doesn't exist anymore for it to be used for, but they can't take it out of there because legally, you're bound to use it, so it just sits there.
I remember that when the selectmen looked at that, and the legal expenses outweighed any benefits that we could end up
So it was
getting.
just, eventually something was to have to be done, but at that time, it was just tabled because the legal costs were,
And we didn't have the money.
yeah, and, well, it was gonna add up to a few $1,000s, to move it, and you were gonna spend, tens. So, eventually, something will need to be done, but that's why some of these funds sit there, they have no use for them, but they can't legally just take that money and,
Right.
in case, there's like a relative or something that, would come forward.
Anything
Be in
else on
trouble.
page 9? You notice that the library has not used their gift that they received of $300,000. They're letting it sit there. They're probably gonna use it for something
I
else.
think they're gonna try to
They're trying
do a
to
renovation.
renovation on the.
Place is
on the
falling
building,
apart,
that's-
they
better That makes
they're
sense.
saving- they're
Yeah, the
For them
roof
to
is
use it
leaking.
at that
yeah.
time.
saving that.
Page 10, and any questions?
COA revolving mart expenses,
Oh, that's another one that's.
Oh, wow.
has been overexpended $25,000. I didn't think you could overexpend a revolver. I
Yeah,
think
that's-
this happened last year, too.
Again, this is,
Yeah.
they expended that last year. This should be highlighted by the accountant for the selectmen to address with that department head.
Sometimes I think that's and what do you wanna call it, a timing thing, or, Mart being slow,
When you
or.
get the money back,
they
the
were- 'cause they were-
reimbursements.
It was gonna be reduced, And then, and not I mean, not just for Templeton, I mean, the whole Mart
The
thing
whole-
that we're
right.
gonna, the amount of money they were gonna give to different places was gonna be cut, and then there was a big, well, hell no, and, so it was supposed to have been reverted back. I don't know if that's the issue here or not, but
Right,
that was the thing that came up. They were gonna cut how much they give each community.
Yep.
And then, like I said, there was a big hell raising about it, and they're gonna switch it back. And I'm not sure if that's the reason for this, but
okay.
I know that was an issue. And I think it came up at a selectmen's meeting, that they were gonna be short, but then it got changed and they were gonna get the money, but
Okay.
it's a possible explanation for that.
The other one on this page is the recycling revolving is also overexpended.
Which one was this?
Recycling
Recycling?
revolving?
Yeah, that's,
How'd they do that?
I don't know.
I don't know. But they're supposed to, when they collect some of the stuff, they have a fee, so that shouldn't be, they should be bringing money in against that.
I don't know.
When's that, waste day? That's coming up.
Hazardous
Hasn't
waste day?
happened
Bulk
yet.
waste, yeah. If you bring in certain stuff,
Empty waste too.
you have to pay a fee, couches, et cetera.
Yep.
All right. Page 11,
It's just a comment. Are the police gonna use the grant to spend on vests?
A lot of money sitting there.
Well, it's a couple of vests anyway.
I would guess. Gold plated.
No, they're expensive.
Never know.
well, it's nice to see that we're not overspending the 911 grant. I wonder if that's where they plan on getting some of the salaries like they did in past years, which
For
Oh,
dispatch,
are not advisable.
right. That's still not gonna get them to the end of the year.
Is that it for page 11?
Yeah.
Page 12?
That, the 911 grant thing, that came up at one of the, as a matter of fact, I asked a question about the chief, because they redid the console equipment up there where they had a problem, and it was, I think it was $80,000, something like that. And I remember I asked them the question if they used the grant money, and, some of it, some of it came from the 911, and I think he applied for another grant for some of the stuff. But the equipment, the consoles and stuff, that's supposed to be what that 911 grant fund is for. It's not for salaries, it's not supposed to be.
It's not supposed to be.
And as a matter of fact, I think there's, I wanna say a list, but it's not really a list, it's specific items that part of that grant, covers this thing, and then part of it goes for it's kinda intertangled there and stuff, but, I know historically it's been used for transfer money out of dispatcher salary to pay all the bills, and then use the 911 grant
To
to
back
cover
up.
the salaries.
Yep.
And I remember, if you remember, there was a memo from Bob Markle 2 years ago, I think. And I think he said it at a selectmen's meeting, that they had to stop using it for salaries before they got in trouble with the 911 commission. Because you can lose that grant,
Right.
so.
The elderly formula grant has got money in there. I don't know what that is.
Is there anything on page 12?
You know, quiet, sir.
Okay, if not, let's go to page 13.
Oh, boy.
Watch it and learn it. Good job.
Cyber grant.
Yep.
Expense, did we get hacked? Do they want our money? It's 100, is it 100? My screens are gone.
100%.
It's 100%
So
expended.
it's gone.
I would say that's probably for the IT.
Yeah,
That's
they,
a good thing.
they
we
might have
need
used
that.
it to get started getting, who was it, Rudder? To come in and do the,
Yeah, that's a
Right.
good move.
yeah,
They could hold us up and we'd have nothing to give them.
As we can see, chapter 90 is fully expended. Page 14.
Oh, wow, the elementary school.
yeah, the feasibility is a negative 119. In the elementary school was overexpended, $1,287,015.44.
How do you do that?
Um,
I mean, really, how do you do that? It's just, I don't get it. Spend money you don't have.
The school feasibility, I don't understand that. If it was allocated and it shows a negative number allocated and the ending balance was negative, that must be where we're part of our deficit.
Right,
Along with the elementary school is showing that's also, ending balance is showing negative also there. Ooh, that's a high percentage variance. Ooh, God, that's high.
well,
That's where our $1.4 million deficit is.
right,
So I don't
Okay.
understand how in the hell you can spend money that you don't have. I don't get it. It's just crazy, and they ought to hold somebody's
It
feet
just
to the
shows
fire for
a
that
lack of,
crap.
even in this last year, it shows a lack of accountability as to what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, it's being handled
Yes, people that
incorrectly
trust
by
you.
going through the, as you heard at the meeting on Monday, it shouldn't have been handled through the selectman's office, it should have been handled through the treasurer collector's office, by the treasurer.
Not too long ago, I requested let's see, I think it was last spring, I requested a budget versus actual for the school project, because I obtained one, I think it was last March in 16. So I believe it was June or July, August, somewhere. I asked for another one. So I went to the treasurer collector, figuring that's, debt. The email was, I don't have any of that paperwork. Try Kelly. I went to Kelly, the town accountant, asked her the question. She said, I can give you a balance, a total, but I don't have the breakdowns yet for that stuff. She said, try the selectman's office. So I tried the selectman's office, and Holly answered that, I've been doing that, but I haven't had time to get to it, and I don't have anything, that I'd be able to give you. And she suggested I try the school. I did speak to the OPM at an elementary school building committee meeting, and he looked at me kind of funny that I couldn't get it from the town, but he said, we have that if you request it from me, I can, but normally you go through the town. And I explained to him, well, I tried, but I couldn't get it.
Still,
So-
even up till now, there's issues, and then,
But that, that's, and I still have the emails, but that's the answer I got. I don't have any of that paperwork. I was, from the treasurer's office, I was kinda lost for words.
yes,
I have that paperwork if you wanna see, if you want it. Do you want me to forward you all that? It's a stack.
forward it to
Well,
the,
like I said, yeah, you can,
forward it
Cause I checked it out myself and I.
forward that to the Temple Advisory, and I'll make sure that gets out to everybody.
Okay,
That way it's not just one individual.
said,
Okay,
Like I
yeah, I'll
said,
send it to the whole board.
yeah, I have one from.
You have the email address, right?
Yeah,
Because you've received some stuff from
I
us,
have.
I'm sure.
yeah. So, yeah, I can forward that to the whole board.
Okay,
Thank you.
You'll find
Thank
yourself
you.
buried alive in about 10 years left.
I get it all day at work anyway, so it's not, just an additional email.
anything else on page 14? If not, let's go to page 15. Most of that's all zero, so I don't see. Those are all trust funds. I don't think we need to end up looking at that, so let's go on to page 16. That's also trust funds. Lastly, page 17.
those are perpetual and
perpetual care and,
conservation.
Conservation
Wow.
fund.
Ooh,
there's a lot of money in that perpetual care. That should be a source that they can end up helping with the cemetery.
No,
No?
no,
No, it
it's a
depends.
trust.
Yeah,
It all depends on how it's
what
written up.
it's
Okay,
for.
yeah, yeah.
Again, that's all them trusts, a lot of them, the function doesn't exist, or they don't really have a way to use the money, and it just bills. But
Okay, if not, let's go on to the revenues. If there's any questions on page 1 of the revenues. The one thing that I didn't understand is that even under 17, I would have suspected that the approved budget would have been put on for 17 for that and real estate taxes. I can understand the prior years, because those were uncollected, but I didn't understand. We're still, we still got over $250,000 that needs to be collected for real estate taxes and property taxes. I sure hope that comes in. Anything on page 2? Well, 17,000 for excise tax isn't too bad. That's a possibility of them coming in with the budgeted amount. No questions on page 2? Page 3? Well, we got over $1 million still to be collected, and only 6 weeks to do that.
that's why you can't spend every penny you think you're gonna get.
Nothing, the ambulance reserve shows a balance of, or actually bringing in 173, and they're taking out 2.25. I would hope that there was money in there before the 173 for revenues thus far.
I think what's gonna hurt, I think that they're going to, depending on what happens with insurance, we may get paid less and less to provide these services. And that's what scares me, because I don't know if we're gonna be able, it's gonna be sustainable. You can bill them what you want, that doesn't mean they're gonna pay you, you know?
Well, I voiced my opinion at town meeting, because I have a concern that they fill 2 slots full-time with benefits. And people chose ALS, but over the next 2 years, going to 24 hours, in increments, that's another $450,000 in salaries and benefits. And with all the other expenses going up, and it's usually, they take a big chunk out of it, and they're not gonna be able to make it up at 2.5. It's either cut government or override at some point.
Yeah, like that'll happen. Pigs fly.
Yes,
If I may,
Yes.
just on the whole, I think, behind the ambulance service, that there's, the town, my understanding is the town has an obligation to send someone, and if we cut out the the ALS service, cut out the ambulance completely, what would end up happening is you'd end up having to send a police cruiser and a fire truck and have no means of getting any kind of reimbursement
Right.
coming back. So in that aspect, we're in better shape with the fact that we are getting some reimbursement than getting none, and it's a lot cheaper, it's a lot
Over the
more
years, there's
expensive
been
for
a
the
lot
fire
of
truck.
controversy about going to ALS
Yeah.
and getting money from outside
Yeah.
vendors, so to speak, that they can end up having that, and it might offset some of the cost of having the police or whatever, and,
I'm just saying
right.
that.
There was never a cost analysis done, and for those, to take and bring it up and not have a cost analysis is not the right way to go. There is a way to take and end up coming up with a cost analysis. There is documentation on the DOR site on how to take and end up doing cost analysis for any particular project. So somebody should have looked at that and said, okay, here's our other option, and that wasn't done.
You know, if I just may add just a second on it, when the ambulance service went from being completely free, volunteer fees, whatever, complete volunteer from the rescue squad, Tim actually put together a cost analysis on it way back then just to get the ambulance service.
Right.
And to start getting people paid some sort of stipend at that point. I don't know what's happened with ALS, but that's what it was then.
Over the years, we changed from volunteers into actually paying for that particular service. I remember
Yep.
distinctly is how they used to go around and collect money. They would go around and do a fundraiser. And that worked out pretty well. Is there anything on that page, on page 3? Page 4? If not on page 4, page 5? I think they got the federal 911 grant at $150,000 coming in, Bennett. Nothing on page 5, page 6? Nothing on page 6, page 7?
I had a question about sewer betterment income. Why?
That's on page,
I don't know.
6?
It's not paginated.
Page, okay, 6,
Yeah,
okay.
it says the income is a negative $560.62. Does that mean they collected that amount over? And is there a betterment account? I didn't think we had a betterment account.
Yep. They must have paid something out of the betterment income. They must have reimbursed somebody back the overcharge.
Okay.
The last page, any questions on that?
Nope, just drops off.
Okay, nothing on that, okay. Let's budget to actual. General discussion on attending the new officials meeting in May. And looking at our account, and that's why I wanted to go through the budget to actual. And if you go back to the front page of the budget to actual, we have $163.24. We have about $100 in expense money. They're charging $50, so I'm bringing this up as to whether anybody wanted to go to that.
When is that again?
Wednesday.
That's
third.
May
31st.
31st. It's $50 per.
And it's at the College, Holy Cross.
Oh, that one's at
This
Holy
where?
Cross?
I think it's at Holy Cross.
Oh, yes, it is. It is close, so. Anybody interested?
I'm not gonna be able to make it, that's graduation week.
Pardon me?
It's graduation week at
Oh,
school.
okay.
I can't do that.
Jeff, you,
I am gonna go. I already sent the check
okay.
to pay my way.
And if you get a receipt, we can end up putting the expenses against that. One other person can go.
Give it back to the town. They need it more.
I'm gonna wait till well, it'll be after we
Right.
don't have another member on. In
Why
that
don't you
case, I'll have to think about it and talk to my boss whether I can go or not that day.
Well, can't you just talk right now and figure it out?
That's not on the agenda, sorry. I'll save you for at least a few hours.
We'll do that under new business.
If you think you're driving there, no.
Holy Cross, you'd have to think and drive me,
I know, I have to drive you down.
my boss would have to drive me there.
You can ride with
I'm
Jeffrey.
driving around town, but not that far.
Oh, your lease doesn't go out of town?
Not yet.
It would actually cost me more than the
Go today.
$50,
Yeah,
even if I paid it, because she'd go shopping,
there you
and
go.
there would probably be hundreds of dollars spent.
Oh, that's a good idea. I like
Should
that.
quit while you're ahead.
Yes,
Right,
okay.
I could find many stores to do.
Review
one
of
day.
document, advisory documents for possible updates. I sent everybody, and I gave everybody a copy of that today. These are all documents that we have talked about and issued. And the question came out earlier this year about whether we should update some of these. The first page is the vision and mission. Those are on the website. And the reason I'm bringing it up is for discussion now is possible agenda items in this coming year to see if we want to end up addressing these and actually doing a more formalized revision on some of these. Because the next document is our financial policy, which was instituted in FY 13, that was actually, it was actually in 13, fiscal year 13, presented to the selectmen. They chose to have it as a goal. It was on the web page up until last year, the beginning of the year. It was taken off for whatever reason. This is a document that has to be in place to get a bond rating. The next document is the General Stabilization Fund. Here's my thoughts on this, and I want to take and see where everybody is at here. I would like to take and reach out to the selectmen, too bad he left.
Oh, he came.
Reach out to the selectmen at a selectmen's meeting to take and end up working with them in conjunction with them. And like other communities, come up with a general stabilization fund policy that, once it's finished, and it shouldn't be more than a page, the actual thing, the supplement in the back shows we're not meeting the goal, and have a general discussion with them, come up with that policy, have both the chairman of this board and the board of selectmen sign it. That shows our commitment from both from the management as well as the advisory. And I'm gonna throw that out for discussion right now to see what everybody thinks.
Well, I certainly think you should get we need to work more with the selectmen on some of these issues. Even if we have a disagreement on the policy, at least to have those open discussions in a workshop or in a meeting. And, you know, quite a few of these documents that we have, to get their feedback or to find out which areas of agreement we can build on would be very helpful. So I'd support doing something with the selectmen on that.
See, the two documents that I just mentioned would be something that we could work with the selectmen. As far as the other documents that are in there, as far as emergency reserve and end-of-year transfers, those are our documents and our policies.
I understand that. It doesn't hurt to find out what their thought is on it. It doesn't mean that this committee needs to change its, you know, how it's gonna handle it.
Yeah.
But, you know, they might have an idea that that a certain policy makes a problem that we haven't thought of. And they might bring that to this committee's attention, and we might then be able to find another way that could resolve that problem while still maintaining what we need to do and operate as a entity, so.
Well, most of these, the finance and also general stabilization as well as the reserves, were actually brought from other communities that have best in class, and they were adopted. And if you go to the annual meetings or any of the meetings for the Association of Town Finances, they tell you plagiarize. Don't create another document when you don't have to. You can make minor changes to fit your community, but don't make wide open changes, because you have it right there, the majority of it. And that's how all, in fact, everything that's in this package that I just gave you was done that way.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I don't know how to say this, but this is my feeling. The show we went to Monday night was very impressive. But it comes around again to the same old problem we always have: lack of finances. If they had done something like put a little away for stabilization, if they had put a little away for anything, then when this year, 18 and 19 comes, they'd be in better shape, but they didn't do that. From what I've heard Carter say too many times, 19 is going to be a test of their resilience. And every board that we have had for 20 years has not been able to manage our finances because it takes a lot of backbone to do what's right. You cannot spend money we don't have, and that's why we've been in trouble consistently. So you can have all the policies you want, unless the selectmen are willing to really, really invest in them, they're useless. And I'm not being negative. I am being goddamn downright honest. I am sick of our town being a laughing stock of Worcester County. I couldn't believe that they did not use common sense, but they didn't. They spent every cent they think we're gonna get, whether we get it or not. So, you know, these are a good idea, but unless they invest in any of this, it's just another piece of paper. And I appreciate your feeling, Will, I agree with you. This is something we have to have, because we're not gonna get better until we do. But I'm gonna sit back and watch and see what happens, because they passed stuff Monday night, the money that they were supposed to put into retirement for OPEB. Well, I remember when we passed that, probably 10 years ago at town meeting. We never had the money to put in there. So now, they're gonna do that. I'm asking you where the money is gonna come from.
Yeah.
They shot themselves in the head when they passed that school bill. Because when people get their tax bills, they are not gonna be okay.
Well, it still presents us problems in that Standard and Poor's had 7 criterias.
Yeah.
Some of the 7 criterias were some of the documentation that we have.
I know, but they
And that
haven't done it.
we've shared with even some of the members that are sitting on this select board now. I understand new people, but there's some people that have been around long enough that we shared some of this documentation.
You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink.
Well,
One of the things that I did notice, and I sent everybody, and it was all because of one selectman, who basically, I mentioned that this town does not do business as far as the advisory committee getting involved in the budget process or whatever, and he basically said, no, you're not supposed to be, blah, blah, blah. And I went to a bunch of communities, and I passed this on for
Yep.
reference to everybody, and I took experts, it took me time to go to each of those things, pick out how they end up handling the budget and the guidelines, and sitting down and setting up the whole budget process as finance and advisory committees in other communities. We're not being allowed to do that.
I know.
well,
Well,
I think, what I'd like to say is, I think some of this needs to be updated to reflect the changes made by the Municipal Modernization Act. Not a lot, but I think a little bit.
yeah,
I think our policy on the transfers between accounts. Some of the-
it only states the law, it doesn't state the percentage.
Right, so I think that may be okay, but I think we should go back and review it just to make sure
Yeah.
it does meet the criteria.
That's why
for
I'm
the-
bringing it up, Julie, is to think and end up looking at this next year, is to review some of these and do a more formalized, maybe put the town seal on some of these, put revision controls, and
No, then they can't
mean,
say you
we-
didn't try.
I think we did a fairly good job of creating these, but we can take it to the next level of formalizing it, being a little more professional. And I don't see that happening elsewhere, but
In some ways, what the audits have made them do is face issues that no one has wanted to face for a lot of years. And it's time to do it, like it or not. But, I don't know, we'll see what happens,
Do
it'll
we,
all come out
do
in
we
the
wanna
wash.
develop a schedule to look at the other policies and maybe every other meeting? Have this as an agenda item so that we can bring up?
that's why I brought it up for discussion.
Okay,
Because I think in looking at this, at some point, we should probably set goals, and this should be one of them.
okay.
And then you
wanna do
can,
the selectmen, joint thing near the beginning to get some of their input, and then again at the end? Like, before you just kinda as an overview?
I'm not sure.
You said you were talking about going over some items with the selectmen.
Well, to take it end up reaching across the aisle
Yeah,
initially is general stabilization, is to take it end up working with the selectmen on getting a general stabilization policy, reaching across to them and saying, here we have one, do you agree with this? Do you want changes? This was taken from other communities, it's worked well for other communities, and at least have a dialogue. And like I said, at the very end of it, you end up coming to some type of consensus,
yeah.
and you have signatures by the chairman of both the board and the committee. So it shows that we've reached across, we're trying to work with you. Now, let's try to take and end up working some other issues also in getting in with the budget process. Maybe that'll follow later on.
they screwed themselves.
So I'm open to suggestions on the stabilization thing, and bringing it up to the selectmen at some, maybe putting an email out to them.
Well,
Do
I
you need
think,
a motion on that, you're just wondering about?
I'm looking for an actual motion as to, or more discussion as to if we should do that or not.
I think we should get our ducks in a row as to what we would like to see
Yep.
as a committee, vote on that, and then ask for discussion with the selectmen.
Okay, so we should probably look at the stabilization before we end up discussing with them again?
Right.
Okay,
If it wasn't for us at that town meeting, there wouldn't be the money in that stabilization fund that there's now. They have to understand that they have to put some money away.
yep.
Can't spend it all.
Okay, so we'll have to take and end up setting each of these documents for review during the next coming year and taking the stabilization one as the first one. Maybe we do that in our meetings come next month.
Okay.
Any more discussion on the documents that, in this packet? Okay,
So do you want this to include all the information from the different
that's just
finance
this,
committees?
that's just this one here.
Just this
The
one?
other one
Okay.
I'm gonna be talking about is to take and end up this, is some stuff that I found and to see if we should be working on those also. I've included in there also some information about interest rates for everybody. I think I sent it out, but I wanna at least have that as informational. And one of the other things is that there was, and it's in your packets, about the bond ratings going back to 1990.
What's the best? Is it the A one? Is that the best one? I don't know how they go.
What's the best bond rating for
What's
Moody's?
the best bond rating, period?
Yeah,
AAA.
triple A.
It starts at B, double A, there's numbers 1 to 3, it goes to A, and has numbers 1 to 3. You have an A rating and 1, 2, 3. And by the way, and they do I can end up getting some of that information
That's all
and
right.
sending it to everybody, but I wanted to take and showing you what our typical bond rating for this community is, and has been a B double A until we actually had a large amount of money in stabilization
Yep.
and free cash.
So knowing this, why
Then we
on
started to borrow
earth
like crazy.
didn't they
That's why.
Then
plan?
we started to borrow like crazy.
And then we
And spent
we
it.
used it all.
Yeah.
No, so is there a way to make a chart with the year, the rating, and the amount of money in stabilization?
Glad to make a chart. You want to provide me with the information?
Well, I
I-
can help
Yes,
you.
I could provide the information.
Okay.
And I looked, as you see, I looked at certain people because I know their expertise in some areas. And Paul has shown that he can end up coming up with some nice charts and stuff for us.
I think that
can
would,
dabble.
yeah, I think that would show the impact of the amount of money in stabilization if we put that figure in corresponding with what the
I'm
bond
not
rating
sure if
was
we
for that
could,
year.
we might be able to get stabilization numbers from the DOR database past years, but I'm not sure. I don't, I know we can get the bond rating, it's obvious,
Right.
I've got that there. You can end up getting other information, but what's in the stabilization? I think it might be available. I can end up looking for that, Paul, and passing it on. I can end
Okay.
up pulling that off.
Nothing like that in the town report. None. No, I don't think so.
Probably not.
Nope.
One of the things I did see, and I'm glad you brought that up, is this, in some of my research, I have seen other communities, as part of their report to the communities, is put in what's in stabilization 1 year to the next, and whether it went up or down, and I think they ended up doing, both the general and capital and free cash. In the past years, maybe not in the current year, but that was a small chart, but what you're talking about is much larger, but yes.
So they put that, did they put that in the annual report?
Yes.
Okay.
You're
So-
gonna ask me what community? I believe it was Kingston. And you're gonna say, where the heck is Kingston?
It must be down
It's in
by Rhode Island
Massachusetts.
somewhere.
So Will, what's the difference between BAA and a BAA one? Is it just a higher level, lower?
It's a higher level.
Okay.
And they actually, if you look at Standard and Poor's, they actually have a chart, and I can get that also. Moody's puts one out and Standard and Poor's puts one out. The rating is a little bit different between them. Instead of a BAA for, I'm sure, I think it's Moody's, they do a triple B instead of a BAA.
And I didn't think we had a bond rating
We don't.
since
If you look,
2012.
huh?
I didn't think we had a bond rating since 2012. You're
No,
showing one for 13
they actually
and
dropped it
14.
off after 14.
Oh, okay.
We ended up getting some money from free cash. And this is really digging into the stuff. Even with the problems we had in 13, the DOR, DLS ended up certifying, let us take $100,000
The free
that
cash.
year, and we put that all in stabilization. That's the only reason that we have over $100,000 in stabilization, or else we would've had less. It was painful to take and end up seeing less than $50,000, I think, was in stabilization after 13.
So I'm looking at this chart. In 2006 through 2009, we had an A3 rating. Is that the highest rating?
For A, yes,
For A?
for A.
Okay.
Now, the
So-
next level is a double A. Double
Okay.
A is a 1, 2, 3.
All
Then you
right.
have a triple A, which is a
AAA?
1, 2, 3.
Okay. So the highest bond rating we've ever had is an A3?
Yes,
Okay.
and
And
that's,
during those years, those are the years we were spending every dime of free cash
yeah,
and stabilization.
but we had
To
a lot,
supplement
we
the
had a lot of
operating.
stabilization money and a lot of free cash for some reason.
Right. One
And-
year, we spent over $800,000
Yep.
in both free cash and stabilization in one of these fiscal years.
Yep, you're right.
It's, okay.
Now, the key thing here is, and we saw that chart, is depending on your bond rating, whether it's a BAA, A, AA, or AAA, is the percentage that you get when you go out for your bond. I've seen communities that have a AAA rating, and they get much lower interest rate than what the USDA has, especially in this economy. Now, a different economy, the interest rate's gonna be higher. I think it was Dedham that I ended up seeing, and I went, and I couldn't believe that they went from a AAA 1 to a AAA 2 or 3, because they were managing their finances that well. I wish we were there. We wouldn't have all these problems. Okay, so Paul will end up trying to pull some of that. I'll end up giving him some information. Any other questions on the bond rate? And I can end up, any information that I sent to Paul, I will send out to everybody, showing what the both Moody's and Standard and Poor's ratings are.
I'm gonna tell you that some people are gonna really, really, really have a problem when this hits them. But you didn't come and vote. Not my fault, you know? It's gonna be
Okay.
devastating to some of the elderly.
Okay?
Yep.
Can we go on? There's another packet that I gave you that had basically 3 documents. Code of conduct, roles and responsibilities, and one-time revenues policy. There was other communities I found as roles and responsibilities. In fact, Stowe, Mass has one that's over 20 pages, rather than what you see here. There was actually one community that had roles of the advisory committee as 1 page. So you have anywhere from 1 page to probably 30 pages in some of these communities. I gave these as an example of what can be done to see where the committee was, whether we should be looking at these also.
Yep.
My feeling is that we should help define what we do and also come up with one-time revenues policy.
I think that's really important because that's what we were told many times in the past, not to use one-time revenues to base your budget on. Back a ways, the DOR didn't like it because the town was using money from the lottery to fund the budget, and they told them to stop doing it. Well, that's a whole lot more reliable than cutting trees.
So I wanna take and end up feeling everybody out on that and see what everybody, the first packet is stuff that we already have, and the second packet is basically what we could do.
Well, I'd like to have some time to review it
Yep,
and then discuss it.
I sent those out in email also, so
Right.
you can end up playing with them, but I wanted to at least have those for general discussion, whether we should at least look at them and then, and maybe do one or all 3 or whatever.
I think it's good.
What's the general consensus on everybody as the,
I think this is good. I need to sit down and read it better. I didn't have much time today.
I'd say that we review the documents we currently have.
Yep.
Obviously, I think everyone should read through this before we review those. Some of this keeping in mind, and then when we're done, we can look at expanding that. But I don't think it makes sense to expand if we're looking at doing reviews anyways. We might address some of that in the review process, you know?
I mean, Stowe has, like I said, a long one.
Yeah.
I only took these here, they were shorter versions and stuff. And they had some things that I said, well, that makes sense, okay, let's at least lay the groundwork as to what we can do.
Yeah, so I would continue on as we review the current ones, get these right in and just kind of flow right into these. I don't know what everyone else thought, but that, you know, kind of go through what we have and then grow.
And go into these after,
And go right into these, you know?
that'll give us some time to review these before we start the other reviews. We can actually schedule these much later after we've gone through our existing documents, if,
Yeah,
okay. We can start that process probably next month. Okay? Old business. Anything under old business? Oh, wait, before we go to old business. I found this in our box, and it is the capital stabilization. Not capital, yeah, well, it affects capital stabilization, is from the capital committee. Is what they actually have got from all the departments, as to what's needed by the departments. right now, I give you this for reference. We probably should have got this before town meeting, so that we had an idea and we could vote on this a little bit better. But unfortunately, that we received this in the box, I just picked it up Monday.
This reflects the reorganization that has gone through cemetery and highway being merged.
Yeah,
So they used to be broken out by departments, so the cemetery department will be separate from highway. So there's like a DPW and building and grounds, B and G.
oh, okay,
Okay, so those capital items have been like merged into that,
yeah,
okay? There's still a library, police, then just straight DPW versus DPW building and grounds.
okay. Any other discussion on this particular thing, before we get into old business? Because I do have something under old business.
The Pine Grove Cemetery Master Plan, they got a question, CPC money, because I was looking at the town reports, and I think it was like in 2011, they had talked about trying to do that, and they didn't do it because there wasn't any money then. So, we'll see if they can get money out of CPC for that, because I don't know where else they're gonna.
Okay, old business, anybody has old business? Okay, on the new business, you heard me say earlier about the advisory committee bylaw stating how the moderator appoints. The reason I'm bringing this under is that we can make it a priority before fall town meeting and actually present it. But we should look at that section 2 and come up with something that's worded so that we end up having two members and 3 members, and that we take into consideration that if somebody resigns, they fill out the existing term of that individual until annual town meeting, and whoever gets that appointment should end up getting appointed for whatever's left in that individual's term. Because if they go back to 3 years, then that's gonna create an issue. That could create an issue where 3 members come up and their term is done, and now you have a member that was, because somebody had resigned, they come up as the 4th person. Now you have 4 people being for 3 years, and that is a majority of the board. It should never be a majority of the board that gets appointed for 3 years. That can be a problem. Why do I say that? If nobody steps forward in that year, and this has happened in the past, this board cannot operate, even with the other 3 members, if they continue on. They will not be able to end up getting somebody's application and even vote that individual on the board because they don't have a quorum. That's a problem.
I think that the intent of the bylaw is clearly that the terms were to stagger and not build on each other, so you would only ever have that. But the language, like you pointed out, is not clear. Maybe the thing to do is ask a town council or somebody with a little bit more legal background as to how that would best be worded.
Yep.
But
Well, the reason that this section 2 was in there is when this came up, originally, was to set up the advisory committee. That's how the moderator had to do it. And to go by what is in the bylaw. Sequentially after that, things have gotten out of hand.
If I understood in reading that through recently, at the beginning, the moderator appointed everyone for different staggering terms. Then after that, he would appoint a certain number to 3-year terms. but what he was supposed to appoint were those vacancies, if I read it correctly.
Right.
Therefore, any other vacancies wouldn't be appointed by the moderator? And that's the ambiguity there, is it's not that clear. You could argue the case that they only appoint 3-year terms, so it's gonna be the vacancies for those 3 years, not somebody else in the.
Yeah, but
in
if that
between time.
individual, if whoever
Yeah.
resigns and there's a vacancy there,
Yeah.
this board has the ability to get that member in. And that term ends at annual town meeting. So that somebody getting on the board for
Yeah,
the
but-
first year resigns,
Show
they
me,
still have 2 more years.
show me in the language.
It doesn't, that's what I'm
No,
saying.
Show me in our language, in our bylaws, that when this committee appoints somebody to fill a vacancy,
Yep.
that it ends at the next meeting and doesn't just fill out that term.
It does say that.
There shouldn't be 3 new people on in 1 year.
Section 3 actually says that. The term in office of any person chosen to fill a vacancy shall expire at the final adjournment of the next succeeding annual town meeting.
Okay.
And the moderator therefore shall appoint his successor to complete the unexpired term. It actually says it in there.
Yeah, so the language is there, that would be somebody that they could appoint to complete that term.
There's another area where it's there and it's not followed.
Yeah, and that's, you know, something, again, that should be reviewed with, you know, town councilor, that to be sure that the interpretation is correct, and if it needs to be restated, because this committee could come up with all sorts of language to recommend, the selectmen could, but in the end, we're not, legal,
Right.
you know,
We can submit it, but
you know.
it has to go through legal anyway.
Yeah, and to have, you know, see if there's a concern, you know, you don't wanna spend money that's not needed with town council, but if, you know, like you said, it could create a big problem, and, you know,
If you
maybe
submit
just.
it, town council reviews it
Yeah.
and would probably change the wording like he has on other stuff.
So, you know, I think that's not a bad idea to address that.
The thing that doesn't make sense is the math that they used. 2 members for 1 year,
Yep.
2 members for 2 years, 3 members for 3 years.
Right.
And after that, whenever, like the 2 for 1 year each,
Yeah,
when their term expires, there's supposed to be 3 people appointed for 3 years.
Yep.
But you only have 2
Right.
that you'd have to pick one of the 2 years and say, oh, by the way, now you're gonna do an extra.
No, you're gonna
No,
grow,
three
you're gonna
years.
grow the committee, you're adding an extra person. We should have
That
two.
was when they shrunk it too,
Well,
from 9 to
that's-
7.
That's an interesting thing, because there are some communities that either have 5 or 7 members, and they have associate members. Unfortunately, over the last, I would say, 10 years, we're lucky if we can end up getting a full board.
quorum.
This
Okay,
board
quorum.
used to be, years ago, when I first came into the community, 13 people. And we had 13 people. Then it went down to 9. It's now 7. I mean, at one particular point, when we were having difficulties, and I just got on, I was thinking of, maybe we should go to 5 like some other communities, if we can't get anybody.
There was a time where they sent out notices to the town with the light bills, trying to get people on the board, because they didn't have anyone that would do it. Our board is probably one of the best-run boards I've seen in a long time.
So my question is, do we consider some wording changes on section 2 to end up
Make it
going
make
into
sense.
the fall town meeting?
I mean, like I said, I read that and I'm looking at it and I tried every which way I can come up with, I go, it doesn't work.
Well, they hired a consultant to go over all our bylaws, correct?
Right?
And it's like a 3-year project, because they can only pay for so much per year. So maybe we could request the selectmen have this company review this and come up, since this is what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe bring up our concerns as to what we see, so, you know, kind of direct their attention,
Yeah.
to what we see as a concern, maybe type up a letter or something like that, and then let them take a look at it.
Right.
Well, we could put a letter out to the selectmen saying this. Because of section 2, the wording in section 2 is not clear, is you have somebody that was gonna codify the bylaws, that should be brought up to them. Do we wanna end up having them come, or
I,
having correspondence with them, or
well, everything
just have the
has to-
selectmen?
Have the selectmen go through it, point out where the issue is, excuse me, and what the issue is. And then get a response for the selectmen. We can't contact the company. They're probably not gonna be able to come out here, because we don't have enough money for them to do that.
Okay.
But if they can do it by correspondence, and they can focus on this, maybe it will be done in time for town meeting, so it could be changed, so it's clarified.
I think maybe that's something after the first of the year, we should probably end up starting to actually communicate that with them.
All right, so you don't wanna do it for the fall?
Well, I mean, yes, for the fall, but after when I say first of the year, I meant July.
Oh, July, okay, I'm like, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about FY year,
All right.
you're thinking
Yeah,
calendar.
calendar year, yeah, all right,
Is that a thought, or,
yeah,
okay. Anything else on the new business?
I'd like to address something that I handed you at the beginning of the
Yes,
meeting.
that was my next thing if nobody
there's-
brought up.
If there's nothing else?
Yep.
So I just want to address the committee. It's with regret that I'm going to have to tender my resignation from this committee. We are in the process of moving out of town.
Blame you.
Actually, we're going to still retain property in town, but we will no longer be, voting in town. So effective at the end of the meeting tonight, I've handed my resignation letter to the chair member. And I just want to thank everyone for the opportunity of serving on this committee and wish you all the best of luck. I've seen a lot of roller coaster rides, but I also see, I believe there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I see some good things that are starting to happen, and I think that this is a good committee, and I know there's some more people in town that I've heard are interested, and that's good. When we're starting now to having people actually submit interest to join this committee, it shows that they're taking more interest in financing issues, and I think it's gonna be a step in the right direction. So thank you all for allowing me to serve.
I spit your name.
I would like to take and end up saying I'm sorry Dick and C couldn't go.
Yeah, me too.
Wish he wasn't, because there are times when he has added sanity to some of the things that we have discussed from his perspective. And he will surely be missed by me, because we've had a lot of conversations throughout the years that he's been on. With regret, I accept, I can only speak for myself. With regret, I have to accept this on behalf of the committee.
No, you're not allowed to leave, you're staying.
It's the bylaws. It says when I'm not a voting member,
You ain't getting it out of it that easy.
Oh, hey,
You're
if
staying.
Driscoll can speak up for the town, you
No.
can too.
If you want to ignore the town bylaws, I could
Why
stay,
not?
I could stay indefinitely.
There's a
We'll join the
trend
club,
there.
all right?
Yeah,
Which brings
yeah.
up, which brings up an interesting thing, since Gordon is submitting this. There were a total of 5 people that put interest forms in. Out of the 5 people, 3 people got appointed, luckily after town meeting, or we wouldn't have had a meeting today. He's in the process of one more. There is another individual that he has their form. I've been in conversation with another individual that is also interested. They're in the process of putting their form in also, to me and the moderator. I'll let him decide. Any future openings that we may have as a board, we at least have potential candidates that they can fill those positions.
Mr. Chairman, can I hate to rain on your parade. Don't head
Yes.
for the door yet. I want to bring something up to the board that's bothered me, and I want to see how you guys feel. I have a problem with what was done at town meeting with the police department vote. Originally, we all know that it was a 2-year debt exclusion. And it was sold to the people as a 2-year debt exclusion. And it magically turned into anything but. I wanna know if that's acceptable. I know Jeff is right about it is what you vote. What I wanna know is how do we make sure we don't do this ever again? I don't know if we should write the Attorney General and ask her. How do we deal with a motion or article that's on the town meeting ballot that says one thing in the explanation and a year later turns around and be anything but? Because I honestly, in my heart, believe people voted on that because it was 2 years and it was gonna be off. It's kind of a slimy way to get it on the tax rate forever and a day.
Right, and I brought that up about it was in there and it was sold to people. I look at this now as unfortunate. In looking at how it was, there's the discussions that we've had about, it wasn't in the motion. Mr. Bennett's absolutely right, unfortunately. I think this is a lesson learned by this whole board.
Yeah, but what I wanna know is how,
Well, we have the opportunity that if they do this again in a summary,
Get it in the motion.
you end up making a substitute motion.
okay.
Yeah.
Because I think that people are, if they're not upset, they
That
should
was
be.
just a good salesman
Yeah.
to put it in the summary and not get it in the motion,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah,
That's all that was, a sales job.
Did I miss
slimy.
you? Did I didn't see you?
No, I was gonna say the same thing. It's gotta
Oh,
be,
okay.
if it's not in the motion,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so they better not try that again, not as long as I'm alive.
you know, the
What's-
townspeople have to agree with the amendment of the motion, so.
Right.
Right.
Well, when they get their tax bill, the guy that I met when I went to buy that mattress, oh my God, he is going to erupt. So it isn't the earth that's shattering, it's the sky going through his roof. It's gonna be bullshit.
Is there anything else under,
No, guess that covers it all.
new business? Or open issues?
When's our next meeting? Are we having a meeting every week, depending on when the selectmen vote? What are we doing?
That's one of the things I'm gonna, as the last thing I'm gonna bring up.
Okay.
This is on the new business.
We have to be waiting
You
patiently.
saw the schedule that the selectmen have. Well, this brings up an issue to us. Our regular scheduled meeting is July 5th.
Oops,
I'm throwing this out to everybody as to whether they think they can end up making a July 5th meeting. That's a Wednesday.
Probably not.
that's a weekend, 4th of July.
No, it's a Wednesday,
Oh, yeah, but
but the 4th is right before it.
Yeah.
It always is.
I'll still be getting over it.
oh, what a genius.
No, you're here, mister, you're super glued to the chair, we're chaining you to the building.
Well,
You ain't leaving.
when is our next scheduled meeting?
Next month, the first Wednesday.
The fir-
You're gonna ask me what the first Wednesday is? The 31st is a Friday, one Saturday,
The
Sunday,
7th?
Monday, Tuesday. It's about the 5th of June.
Okay. All right, so is that our next scheduled meeting?
Yes. We have two
Okay.
meetings scheduled for June.
Okay.
That would be the 7th.
Yeah,
on Wednesday,
7th.
A 7th?
June
Mhm.
7th and June 21st.
and the 21st.
Okay.
The last meeting for the year will be the 21st. At that particular, here's another question, and it was because of it, some discussions I've had with an individual. You end up picking your officers for the next fiscal year at that time to reorganize. Do you reorganize before you finish the business for this year? Which puts those new officers in a position where, to run the
You
meeting.
have to clean up your mess.
Or do you put the reorganization at the end of the meeting for those officers for the coming year? I mean, I thought about this and I said, it's not up to me, it's up to the
I
whole,
would do
it's
it
up
at
to the
the
whole
end of the
committee
meeting.
that they can decide on how they wanna end up doing it.
Seems like you should do it at the end of the meeting.
I have an end of the meeting, do I have any more discussion on that, or? Because I'll tell you, one year, and this was FY 15,
It's bad.
and Gordon can remember this. The chairman did not reorganize in June. He said, I got unfinished business and I'm gonna remain chair,
It won.
basically. He did remain chair through June. At the beginning of August, and this is where we get into some other issues. The beginning of August, we ended up trying to do a regal. We had a stalemate. We had 3 for one individual, 3 for another, and an abstention. We had to go to the next meeting. The next meeting, we had 3 for one individual, 3 for another. The compromise,
Bump somebody off in the parking
the
lot?
compromise chairman is sitting at the end and he's just resigned on us.
I probably should've done it sooner.
And he ended up reluctantly taking it that year, which I think it worked out well. I think it worked out well because that was a compromise that everybody could end up,
You're the peacemaker, Gordon. That's his nature.
I go for the end of the meeting.
okay, we have 2 for the end of the meeting.
So this is the first meeting in July, whenever it may be.
Right, the new people would take over the first meeting in July. Whoever the officers are that we vote at the end of the meeting, the first meeting in July, they would end up being the
So
officers.
this
He's
would
saying
be,
the end of June, at the end of your last
Oh,
June
at the
meeting.
end of,
oh, June 21st meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
yes,
That makes
At the
sense.
end of that meeting, we'll reorganize.
Yeah.
Right.
And by then, the
Right.
moderator will have appointed anyone that they were gonna appoint.
That's
Right.
Yeah,
right,
so all the appointments will have been made.
right, all the appointments should be made.
Next meeting.
The only caveat that I would have to that is, and it all depends on the selectmen, as to when they put end-of-year transfers in.
Well, if they don't wanna, if they wanna have the
It
transfer,
would be,
they better get 'em
we would
in.
probably have one more meeting in June, which would be the 28th.
Whatever
You
it
could
is.
still end up having it at that particular time.
Yeah, but I don't think that the end of the year transfers, the chairperson makes a big difference on that.
Right,
No,
it
because
is
that
what
was
it
the
is.
reason it was being held up, is there were still end of the year transfers they
Right.
want to take place. But no matter what, if they present them, you're gonna have to take them as a committee, you have to present them.
Right.
So it doesn't matter who the chairperson is.
Well, the only thing there, Gordon, is you're right, on voting for them, it doesn't make any difference.
Yeah.
It's the handling of the paperwork.
Yeah, that's true.
The new person coming in on handling the paperwork, because you end up,
No, that's okay.
you end up, both the emergency reserve and the end-of-the-year transfer, you have basically, you end up with 3 copies. This board's, the requisitioner, and then it goes to the accountant, because that's where everything, where any money is gonna be transferred. So there has to be a number of copies once, and that's why it's signed off by this board, shows how many members voted and what we voted yes or no on that, and how much we voted. I mean, it's very straightforward that we agree. I mean, we could end up doing an end-of-year transfer and they want 10,000, and we say, no, you can only have 7. And that's what we put on the piece of paper, and that's what the accountant should be putting on.
All right. So we'll do this on the 21st of June.
Right, schedule it for 21st, unless something happens and we have to have another meeting in June.
Are you gonna communicate my concerns about police department wages or dispatch wages, the one that, the account that was at 97%?
I'd like to take it up, see, I can make that decision, you know. I'd like to take and appoint you as the individual, since you brought it up. It's just, to take it, is to take and copy the rest of the board when you submit that.
Okay.
I mean, that's my thoughts on it. The rest of the board has to agree with that. Do I have a motion to take and end up having Julie submit that?
Yes.
The reason is that I see some paperwork coming in and I don't wanna take and end up not being able to handle that and make copies, et cetera, Julie,
Okay.
okay? And I'm just,
Yep.
like,
Just do it by unanimous
I have to rely on,
There's no.
No,
Folks
I
on
don't have
the
a
board.
problem doing it,
If
I
you
just,
do it
you
by
know,
unanimous
Okay.
consent with no objection.
do I have a motion to have Julie represent us and send a meeting, that message to the selectmen?
Second it.
Motion in a second. Any discussion? All, Bev,
Yes.
Julie,
yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Gordon,
Yes.
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
I was waiting because I saw you writing,
That's right.
and I'll vote yes.
All right, so I will do this right away.
So,
I don't know.
Bounce a check.
the meeting in July, do we still schedule for July 5th?
No?
If you're reorganizing, I'd leave it on the schedule and leave it up to the new chairperson.
Okay.
That'd be my thought.
Keeping in mind, they have till the 15th of July to
Right.
request.
And the only other time that they could end up doing it is on the 12th, which is the following week, and that's 3 days before the 15th. So if they cancel the 5th, and they had, the selectmen have a end-of-year transfer, like he had showed on the 10th, then we would have to, we would be forced to take and end up having an emergency meeting, this board, or this committee.
Let's hope not, that's.
Anything else on the new business since we ran the gamut here? Open for adjournment?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes.
Yes.
You can sit here.
Yeah, let me know how you make out.
You're going, right, tomorrow? You're gonna leave, what, 4 o'clock? I can't drive that far. I can drive in town. Is Julie going
To what?
to, the
Wednesday.
thing, tomorrow? In Bolton, the one I sent?
Oh, I can't.